Coming up on DC News Now at noon, selling spy secrets. A Maryland couple will be sentenced today on national security charges. What the court is asking on how long they will be behind bars. And later, recounting votes. Which candidate in Maryland is asking for a recount after a too close of a call race? And good afternoon, and thank you for joining us for DC News at noon. I am Mark Hall. We begin with meteorologist Damon Matson, who is back from vacation. Damon, I know you haven't been around for a while, but let's talk about the weather that we need to focus on for today, my friend.
Oh, yeah. I saw yesterday it was cloudy around here as I was flying back in. I saw all the clouds, and I know that was part of the gist for yesterday. So today we are changing that up. Thankfully enough, we are breaking back out some sunshine ever so slowly from east to west. Things are improving, but the other good part here is it is still staying comfortable. When might we start to bring back a little bit of warmth and humidity to the forecasts? We'll let you know in just a bit.
All right, Damon, thank you. Well, breaking at noon, First Lady Joe Biden tests positive for COVID-19. Her communications director says she developed cold-like symptoms late Monday night. Her rapid test came back negative, but her PCR test came back positive. The First Lady is said to be experiencing mild symptoms, and she will isolate from others. She's currently in South Carolina and can return home after 2 straight negative COVID tests. President Biden, who just recovered from COVID-19, has tested negative. Well, selling spy secrets, a Maryland couple will be sentenced today in federal court on national security charges. Jonathan and Diana Toby have both pleaded guilty to selling top secret files from the U.S. Navy about nuclear submarine propulsion programs. Now, the intention was to leak the data to a foreign agent. Little did they know that all along it was a law enforcement agent waiting to catch them in the act. Jonathan smuggled classified documents out over an extended period of time, making 4 dead drops of intelligence, once in Virginia, once in Pennsylvania, and twice in Jefferson County, West Virginia, where he and his wife, Diana, were arrested in October. Well, sentencing begins at 1 p.m. in West Virginia. We will bring you the latest both on air and online at dcnewsnow.com. One update to a string of shootings in Prince George's County. The victims are being identified today. Police say that 29-year-old Kayvon Glover was shot and killed in Upper Marlboro Saturday. According to the department, 20-year-old LaDanian McMillan and 21-year-old Tyrene Spry and 51-year-old Terrence Kuntz were all shot and killed on Sunday. And people are growing frustrated with violence. Our contributor Larry Calhoun of DC Real-Time News responded to one concerned neighbor who said the violence is hurting families and communities, and this has to come to a complete stop. Enough is enough. And police have tweeted out about the crimes, but still no news conference to answer worries from families and others who live in the region. A popular Arlington pub is vowing to come back 3 days after someone crashed into the business. More than $70,000 has been raised for Ireland's forecourts. Nearby restaurant Quarter Deck also stepping in by helping donate 25% of its sales tonight to Ireland's forecourt staff.
Restaurant business is an incredible group of people. A restaurant in general is lucky to have survived COVID, especially, smaller places like us and forecourts. And for this to happen to them, you just gotta feel for them,
It's important to point out that Ireland Forecourts building remains structurally sound, but there's still no reopening date. Well, counting down to a recount. DC News Now is your local election headquarters, and we're following breaking news. We might have to wait a bit longer for results from Montgomery County's executive race. Christy Matino tells us why.
David Blair's communications team confirms to DC News Now that Blair will be filing a petition for a recount. This comes after the Board of Elections certified that Elrich defeated Blair by just 35 votes. And now the race is not over yet. Here's a look at some of the numbers from a bit earlier today. Elrich received 39.2% of the vote. That's 55,497 votes. compared to Blair's 55,462 votes, or 39.17% of that vote. Under Maryland state law, the losing candidate has until 3 days after local certification to file a petition for recount. But frustrations continue for Montgomery County voters who have already waited a long time for these results. Just last week, the Board of Elections discovered 102 uncounted provisional ballots on Thursday. That delayed their election certification that was initially planned for Friday. Blair ended up gaining 7 votes from those ballots. Once he files this petition electronically, the recount will begin within 2 business days, and that process will continue daily until those votes are recounted. But still unclear just how long Montgomery County voters will have to wait to get those final election results. At the Board of Elections in Montgomery County, Christy Matino, DC News Now.
Our thanks to Christy for breaking down the numbers. Well, today, President Biden will sign the Inflation Reduction Act, a bill that tackles health care costs and fights climate change. Washington correspondent Rashad Hudson has more.
This is a historic moment.
Later today, the Inflation Reduction Act will become law. The House took the final step in passing the bill Friday on a party line vote, sending the massive economic package to the president.
This is extraordinary and historic legislation.
The bill fights climate change and lowers some prescription drug prices.
Big drug companies, they spent nearly $100 million to try to defeat this bill. And yet every Republican in the Congress voted against the bill.
It's estimated to raise over $300 billion over the next decade in new revenue.
Those that are paying $0 in federal income tax will now have to pay a minimum tax.
Oklahoma Congressman Tom Cole doesn't believe the bill will actually help Americans.
Nothing in this bill is actually going to take effect in the immediate future.
And Louisiana Congressman Garrett Graves worries it will lead to higher inflation.
This bill is a disaster. There's a credibility gap. They've caused the problems. Now we're being asked to trust them to fix it.
And a largest celebration for this bill is scheduled for next month when lawmakers are back in session. Well, 2 prominent Republicans are making one last plea to keep their seats in Congress. Primaries in Wyoming and Alaska get underway today. Congressman Liz Cheney and Senator Lisa Murkowski are both staunch critics of former President Donald Trump, and that could make or break them. Now, in Wyoming, Trump-backed Harriet Hageman leads Liz Cheney. A University of Wyoming poll last week showed Hageman was ahead by 30 points. Cheney spent quite a bit of time in the headlines recently, taking a leading role in both the January 6th hearings and the doubling down on the integrity of the 2020 election. In the UW poll, 94% of Cheney's supporters believe that Joe Biden's election was legitimate, compared to just 16% of Hageman's supporters.
The lie that the 2020 presidential election was stolen is insidious. It preys on those who love their country. It is a door Donald Trump opened to manipulate Americans to abandon their principles, to sacrifice their freedom, to justify violence.
And earlier this summer, Congresswoman Cheney called on Democrats in Wyoming to temporarily switch parties so they could come out and vote for her in the state's Republican primary. In Alaska, Lisa Murkowski is facing 18 challengers in today's Republican primary. Voters will use a new ranked choice voting system where the top 4 candidates will get to move on to the general election in November. She's expected to join that field of 4, and she's already making plans for the fall. And a familiar face, former Alaska governor and 2008 vice presidential nominee Sarah Palin is hoping for a return to the nation's capital. Special election today looks to fill the seat of late Alaska Congressman Don Young, who held Alaska's only seat in Congress for the last 49 years. Governor Palin faces another Republican and another Democrat in that race. Well, developing now, exclusive new details this afternoon as targeted threats against law enforcement agents mount after the FBI raid on former President Trump's Florida home. News Nation is reporting law enforcement agents are on alert after a bulletin described a lookout for a man who made, quote, concerning visits to both FBI and DOJ buildings here in D.C. And they say that he was looking to air out his grievances. That same man is said to have told his mother that he was going to blow up an undisclosed sheriff's office. Right now, he's not facing any charges, but investigators are concerned about his mental health. Well, happening today, the first of several mobile vaccine clinics are pulling up to the schools in D.C. as students get ready to head back to class. Joseph Omo visited one and lets us all know what we need to know.
School officials here in Washington, D.C. say it's finally time to keep COVID out of the classroom. And of course, the best way to do that is to get vaccinated, which is why the D.C. Department of Health is making it really easy. Take a look. These mobile clinics are coming straight to the schools themselves, so that way kids can roll up their sleeves. So here's what you need to know. All students ages 12 and older need to have the full doses of the coronavirus vaccine along with all of the other required shots. Now, from now through the end of the month, there will be 9 mobile vaccination clinics popping up across the city, including here at Stanton Elementary. Now, there is a bit of a grace period. Students have until 20 days into the school year to get the shot. DCPS says if a student still remains out of compliance after that, they simply won't be allowed into the classroom. Now, kids can be exempt from having to get the shot, but only for medical or religious reasons, which are reviewed on a case-by-case basis. By the way, if you have any questions about the upcoming school year, you are in luck. The chancellor of DCPS will be hosting a Facebook Live town hall. It's this Thursday at 5 p.m. You can get all your questions answered, from vaccines to academics. Reporting here in Southeast D.C., I'm Joseph Olmo, DC News Now.
And the first day back for DCPS students is right around the corner, Monday, August 29th, and you can head to dcnewsnow.com to find a full list of where those mobile vaccine clinics will be set up. Well, Damon, the sun is shining. I hope it's going to be a nice Tuesday, but is change on the way?
Well, change in this case is a good thing, Mark. It looks like we're going to be improving those conditions as we move ahead through the rest of your day today. That pesky low pressure center that brought us that cloud cover yesterday, well, it's still spinning away just off of the east coast here, but it's skirting off to the north and east. We're getting some drier air worked into the metro and the 4-state region, and that pretty much has eroded away most of that cloud cover that was out there this morning, even some of that fog in a few locations, and any showers right now are just relegated to the mountains of western Virginia, West Virginia, and then into western Maryland.